Coming up, the Gentleman Junkie giveaway knife, a wicked new one from Station IX, and knives for hiking, camping, and combat. We take a look at 10 great field knives. I'm Bob DeMarco. This is the Knife Junkie podcast.
Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast, your weekly dose of knife news and information about knives and knife collecting. Here's your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco.
Welcome back to the show. One of my favorite comments from this past week, and the comments have been flowing, and they are funny, man. You guys have some good insights and great senses of humor. But this one comes from Stuart Rollings 602 about my TKL Knives collection episode last week. He says, "Nice show, Bob. I don't want to say how many TKLs I have acquired, but making the EDC choice for the day has become a fun routine." And Stuart, I hear you, my man. It's not just the TKLs I have to choose from. So every day, as you see with my my mild-mannered dad EDC videos, it becomes harder and harder to carry a few knives, and it becomes harder and harder to choose, especially when you have so many great TKLs to choose from. I hope the 001, the Agent 001, is one of those knives that you're wondering if you should carry, because, you know, I have a special love for that knife. All right, well, thanks for commenting. Thanks for watching the videos. I'm going to be doing, I'm not sure if it's going to, when it's going to happen, but I'm going to start doing a couple of vertical lives. And I'm going to show you how you can just hang out with me, how I build a fire, and how I bake bread. I've become a phenom at baking bread. Okay, maybe not a phenom, but I love it, and I've been experimenting. And I'm going to be doing one over the campfire, so I want you all to watch that. All right, that said, let's now get to a pocket check.
What's in his pocket? Let's find out. Here's the Knife Junkie with his pocket check of knives.
I just took a quick turn and burn road trip. It was only about 3 hours away, and it was only for one evening. But if I go anywhere 2 hours from home, I have to have the Microtech SOCOM Elite on me. Now, this has become superstition at this point. I have plenty of knives with glass breakers, but that's how this all started. This was my first knife with a glass breaker. Also, incidentally, my first knife with bearings, first knife with S35VN, first knife with carbon fiber, and I've had it for quite a long time. This is a 2023, or I'm sorry, a 2012, only off by a couple of years. This is a 2012 production. I got it in 2013 from a guy who was building a house out in California, needed a little extra scratch for the effort, and let this go for a somewhat decent price. So I love this knife. It is never leaving my collection, and it is the one of two knives where I can excuse that tip down only option. Such an awesome knife. At this point, this has cut everything that I cut except for wood. I've never used that for doing any sort of feather sticking or anything like that. Next up is the new After Hours Jack from Jack Wolf Knives. I had this in my back left pocket. That's where this one's been living because I don't carry this one in a leather slip, as it is a flipping, locking, pocket-clipped Jack Wolf knife. Now, he does, Ben Belkin and Jack Wolf Knives does ship these with a filler tab if you feel like removing that clip and putting a filler tab and putting it in your pocket in a pocket slip. But I don't. I like it just in my pocket, as you can see from the lint in that sharpening choil. The blade is 3.125 inches, so a little bit larger than the slip joint variety of Jack Wolf knife. It has amazing action, a full-length long pull, so that, you know, it looks like a slip joint long pull, but it actually acts as a modern knife fuller for flicking. So great way to open it. That's my preferred method. But the front flipper does work very well, whether with the thumb or, let's see if I can do it with my left hand. I can't. I'll do it with my right, with the forefinger. Very deeply hollow ground, full height hollow grind on that S90V blade. Beautiful machine satin. I still have some schmutz on it there. There we go. And I am a super huge fan of the look of this dark matter red carbon fiber next to the dark blasted titanium. Just a beautiful knife. Rides beautifully in the back pocket on the left side next to my bandana. So Been loving that. On me in my waistband at the 3 o'clock, the Ruffian from Hogtooth Knives. This is at this point, this is a tried and true older knife. Older meaning I've had it for a few years. I got this for my 51st birthday when I happened to be at the Hogtooth Knife shop up in Massachusetts with my parents. My dad had commissioned a couple of kitchen knives from him for my mom, who's an amazing cook, for their anniversary. We went up in person to pick them up, and that was a fun trip. Great bonding experience with the folks, and then got to see Matt's operation. It's so cool. His shop is awesome. Anyway, he had a blank of this laying around. I said, I want this knife. And then I picked the liner colors and that really nice tan canvas micarta. And this is just a great clip point. I call it a clip point. It's just got a real long clip and a hollow grind, 154 cm. It's a great knife. This actually could be on our list of field knives. It's kind of in that realm, though I carry it more thinking of it like a fighting knife, for all the knife fights I get into. So the Ruffian was on me today. Also, the name Ruffian sort of belies that nature, I think personally. And then also on me, rattling around in my pockets, was the charming and super useful and stylish Pepperwool Merino MM. We had Baron from Pepperwool on a few months back, and you might recognize his design language from SOG's rebranding back in 2015. He was a big part of that effort, and you can see his design language shine through in this. Really well-made, charming little knife. That white G10 is starting to get a little grungy, but no worries. You can just hit it with a little isopropyl on a cloth, and that'll clean it right up. I love the blue anodized blade. I am generally, it's not anodized, it's coated, but I am generally not one for colored blades. It's either, the silver, natural silver color of the blade or black coating. But in this case, that blue is just beautiful. Love it. So this is what I had on me today. What did you have on you? Let me know. Drop it down in the comments. I had the SOCOM Elite from Microtech. I had the After Hours Jack, the latest iteration of that from Jack Wolf Knives, the Ruffian from Hogtooth Knives, and the Merino MM from Pepperwool. I'm going to put these back, and I'm going to show you now what our Gentleman Junkie knife giveaway knife is for January 2024. And if you're watching this show the day that it drops, this giveaway will be tomorrow, so you have one day to become a Gentleman Junkie if you're not already. What's a Gentleman Junkie, you say? I'm a gentleman. I'm also a junkie. Well, to be a Gentleman Junkie, you have to be a part of our top tier of support on Patreon. So every month on the third Thursday, in this case, the fourth Thursday, we give away a knife to one of you lucky gents. All right, now this one is mine, not the one I'm giving away. I'm leaving that totally pristine. But this is the Bad Feather Knives Raider Creek. It's a fixed blade, an out the front fixed blade, sort of a gravity knife, but a very innovative and beautiful. It is a gravity knife, I guess you could say. Very innovative and very beautiful. It's got a high polish stone wash grind, so it slips through materials well and is wicked sharp. This one is S35VN and a titanium body. It almost looks integral. You can barely see the seams to that titanium, but you clip it onto your pocket here with this clip, and it rides nice and low in the pocket and also rides low on the pocket seam, so doesn't stick out. It also doesn't look so much like a modern knife. Excellent knurling on the handle and a very innovative design. 5 parts to this. And when you take it apart and put it back together, you get rid of the slop. If any slop develops in that action, which it hasn't for me, and I've kind of fidgeted with this pretty obsessively. It works with gloves on quite easily. And Dan Voorhees, the man who designed and makes this knife, is going to be on Thursday Night Knives to help give this away. So I'm looking forward to meeting him in person. We've corresponded quite a bit on email, and he's an awesome dude. And I'm really excited for him and this knife. This one is mine. It also ships with this a very strong magnetized hook. So I have this hanging on the side of my Craftsman knife case. So this is our Gentleman Junkie giveaway knife for January 2025. All right. Okay, well, I mentioned Patreon before, but I want to put up the QR code. So in case you're interested, you can scan the code and go to Patreon, see what we have to offer. Besides giveaways, we also do, we offer interview extras, which are some of the best conversation we have with the people we interview. If you're new to the show, brand new to the show, every Sunday we drop an interview show with a knife maker, knife designer, or otherwise knife luminary. We've talked to a lot of people who are martial artists, like Michael Janich, for instance, of Spyderco, who also has pioneered his martial blade concepts. He really knows what he's talking about in that realm. And so we talk to all the knife luminaries you want to hear from, and we still have more in the offing that we are going to be talking with. So you get extras from those conversations. Once the interview is over, they let their hair down, they talk about all sorts of stuff, and we offer it to you in the interview extras. So come join us at Patreon. Quickest way to do that is scan the QR code on your screen or go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon. Again, that's TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon.
Adventure Delivered, your monthly subscription for hand-picked outdoor, survival, EDC, and other cool gear from our expert team of outdoor professionals. TheKnifeJunkie.com/BattleBox.
You're listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. And now here's the Knife Junkie with the Knife Life News.
All right, a lot of cool knives coming out, being announced as it's the beginning of 2025. And that's when a lot of companies announce the new knives that you can expect throughout the year. And many of them debut at SHOT Show, which is happening next week as we record this show. SHOT Show is an all-around sort of gun and militaria type trade show. Lots of knives there, but also lots of other things like guns and vehicles and other kinds of weapon systems. So interesting show. I've never been to it. One of these days I'd like to. It would be cool to see some of the innovative stuff that come out with there. But Topps is announcing a brand new one. This is with Jason Swain, co-designed with Jason Swain. And he's done a couple of others for them. I'm trying to think of what they are. I know he's done one with Schrade that I have, that really cool recurve machete. But this one is called the Topps Trailhead Kukri, another sort of ethnographic mashup from Jason Swain. And this one looks really cool. As you can see, it looks like a kukri ambit or a karukri. It's a kukri and a karambit put together, but it's for field and trail use. There's no denying that a kukri is an absolutely deadly weapon, but it also excels at all sorts of bushcraft and camping and outdoors related activities because it's such a great chopper. The shape of that blade is such a great chopper. So here you have something. They haven't released the specs, but I'm guesstimating just from looking at it, it's like a 3.75 to 4-inch kukri style blade with an extreme downward angle, that you will find with a kukri. And this one has a micarta handle with a kukri style ring on the back. Now, just looking at it and just spitballing here, that kukri does not look like it would be excellent for, that karambit ring, or that ring at the pommel, does not look like it would be excellent for karambit style activities, as it's not offset enough to really make a fist without having to change the shape of your fist. But that's not the only thing rings are great for. They're great for actually getting the knife in hand. I've learned that over the past couple of years. I really like rings for that purpose more than flipping them around and looking flashy. They really give you a very positive grip in pulling the knife from the sheath. So you got that. You've got that awesome line of jimping. You have 1095 blade steel with black traction coating, and then you have a pot notch on the back. That's for grabbing a hot bale. on a camp pot that might be sitting in the coals or sitting or dangling over the fire. That allows you to grab that in a positive fashion. Is it tactical or is it a field knife? I say yes, it is both. So looking forward to checking that out. The Tops Trailhead Kukri, designed by Jason Swain. Next up from We Knife, they've been coming out with a lot of cool stuff that we've featured here. And We Knife never sort of shies away from a nice large-sized blade. This new one, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce. It looks like Quinseris to me, but I can't tell if I'm used to seeing the word quinceañera or what. But Quinseris. You decide how to pronounce it. Quinseris? Quinseris? Not sure, but it's a 4-inch bladed beauty, and it's got a dramatic 3.96, so we'll just call it 4-inch clip point blade, M390 blade steel. Comes to a nice pointy tip. I don't know how else to put it, but it's not a very broad tip. There you see it right there, opened, and man, it is a very good looking knife. I mean, every time I look at it, I'm like, should I? And then I look at the price tag, ranging from $410 for the cheapo model all the way up to $854 for the Damascus blade. But this one has a flipper and a thumb stud and a titanium frame lock frame with 5 different colorways. And that includes 5 different carbon fiber inlays, but also 5 different blade treatments: full black, black and some satin, all satin, partially stonewashed, and then you get that Damascene blade. That's so, I mean, it's a little too many notes for me. It's so flashy and cool, but these things are awesome. And if you're a wee guy or a big knife, a fancy big knife guy, this is definitely for you. But I got to say, for me, the favorite part of this knife for me is the profile. The handle and the blade are both really, really beautiful. I love clip points, and that's a pretty dramatic and pointy clip point. Next up, I want to talk about a couple coming from Kershaw. Kershaw just announced part of their 2025 lineup. I believe they have more coming, but here are some that I just want to show off. The first is the Iridium. I love the Iridium. That's an EDC blade that came out, I believe, in 2023. Well, now it's graduated to the Launch Series. The Launch Series, they're very famous American-made line of automatic knives. So the Iridium is a beautiful knife, and I think it's been I think now it's reaching the pinnacle of its expression. It's the perfect knife to put in the Launch Series as far as I'm concerned. This one will have Magna Cut. So you got the same Iridium profile there, just in automatic and in Magna Cut and USA made. The next is the Kindred. This is a nice looking little EDC. We see a button lock on there, and it's a D2 blade steel. Pretty broad drop point blade, but it's got that center line point. So maybe you could call it a spear point, I guess. But I'm looking at it right now on the screen as you are, and it's a good looking knife, I gotta say. I think Kershaw, started to come close to disappointing at one point to me. And I think they, right around the time they launched the Launch Series, they sort of came back from the edge. They were just about over the precipice, and they pulled themselves back and have just been making awesome stuff. And I love Kershaw. Next is the Broadside, kind of it looks sort of like a version of that Kindred, but the Broadside is longer, 3.5 inches of D2. I am really loving all the jimping, big, bold jimping on the finger notch, the thumb ramp, and then also what I love is on the pommel, because it just encourages you to turn it around and hold it in reverse grip. This one also has a different lock. It's got a crossbar lock. Theirs is called the Duralock. And I have to say, I have the Duralock on my version of the Iridium, and it beats all. It's my favorite crossbar lock, bar none. See what I did with the language? This one, 3.5 inches of D2. Lastly, this one's gorgeous. This is the reverse Tonto live wire. The live wire is Kershaw's out the front automatic knife. So you have a really nice looking aluminum handle with the forward slide and a gorgeous 3.3 inch Magna Cut reverse Tonto blade. I'll just relent and call it a reverse Tonto blade. All right. But I would call it a slightly swept, modified sheep's foot. That's what I'm calling it. But that's just too ungainly to say. So reverse Tonto live wire, looking beautiful. And I'm really excited to see this one. Probably won't buy it because I'm not right now in an out the front mode. But maybe next time I come back into an out the front mode, I will get it. Of course, for a Kershaw, it's pretty expensive. It's I think it's just south of $250. But you pay for this kind of machining and this kind of engineering. That's the word I'm looking for. So looking cool and excited to see Kershaw always looking strong. Next up, Zero Tolerance, a company related under the same Kai umbrella as Kershaw. They've been kind of lagging the past few years. Everyone's noticed it. They used to come out with a number of models, but now they just drop one or two, but always excellent models. This year, the one that has made a big splash, I've seen on a lot of our Trusted Voices videos here, is the 0512. And just as a side note, one of my favorite Ferraris ever was the 512 Berlinetta Boxer, the Boxer from the 80s. What a cool Ferrari that was. I mean, they're all cool, right? But that was definitely my favorite. So it's cool to see a cool number designation on this, the 512. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the car I just mentioned. But this is a beautiful clip point blade, 3.45 inches of, yes, crew wear. I know a lot of you steel nerds are drooling at the thought of crew wear on a ZT. This has a really nice looking canvas micarta show side and then an anodized titanium backside. It's got a stubby little reverse deep carry pocket clip, 4.4 ounces on this beauty. And as I mentioned, it's on a lot of videos already. You can check that out right now. I've also seen just now coming out in videos, the next one, also a great number. It's always been my lucky number, the 44 or 0044. For me, it's just 44, but the 0044, this is a smaller version of a smaller relative. It looks somewhat similar to the 512 in that it has a blade and a handle and it folds, I guess. It doesn't really look that much like it, but 3.2 inches of S45 VN, a steel we don't hear that too much from these days, but a super steel nonetheless, and one that I would like to get in the collection. I used to have a Hogue with that, but I no longer have that knife. Full titanium handle. It's got that interesting oblong pivot there and a button lock. The button lock is beautifully anodized teal. So I think that's, I don't know, I think it's a good look because the whole thing is basically gray and silver, but then you have that little pop of color. KVT bearings, so it'll be super smooth with a flipper, 3.4 ounces, and both of those zero tolerance knives are available now. So definitely check that out. All right, still to come on the Knife Junkie podcast, State of the Collection. We're going to take a look at a new one from Station IX, one from Tops that I am fostering, and something from Cold Steel that's not so sharp, but is still a knife. Coming up on the Knife Junkie podcast.
The Shockwave Tactical Torch is your ultimate self-defense companion, featuring a powerful LED bulb that lasts 100,000 hours, a super sharp crenulated bezel, and a built-in stun gun delivering 4.5 million volts. Don't settle for ordinary. Choose the Shockwave Tactical Torch. TheKnifeJunkie.com/Shockwave.
And now that we're caught up with Knife Life news, let's hear more of the Knife Junkie podcast.
It's been out for several weeks, maybe even a month or two, but I finally got mine. And I've been wanting this for about a year since they announced it. And I believe Westfall showed this off on the interview we did with him, or maybe he just showed me after the fact. But this is the beautiful number 12. I should say beautiful and deadly number 12. It's like a James Bond femme fatale here. Just a gorgeous, graceful looking knife, but all business. Totally wicked. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned, the number 12. It's got an upswept sort of Persian-y blade, double-edged because it has serrations on the back edge. But it's not Persian-y in that the tip is still lower than the spine of the handle. So it's downward offset. It's offset at an angle from the handle, much like a Pikal style knife frequently is. And that aids in reverse grip thrusting, if you will. So if you're back fisting with that knife, you get the point hitting the target instead of glancing backwards. Here, let me show you on the main camera in a first-person POV. So if I have this knife, and this is a fighting knife, a self-defense knife, whatever you want to call it. But if I have it in reverse grip, which this is optimized for sure, and I'm doing a back fist motion, that tip will engage with the target, as opposed to if you had a regular Persian style blade with a blade spine that goes flat along the back of the handle and curves upwards, you would have to kind of change the angle of your fist and wrist to get it to land where you want. I mean, you would still do a lot of damage, but that angle really helps, as it does with a Pikal style knife. The other reason I say it's very much optimized for this reverse grip are these serrations. This is not for bushcraft. You're not going out and sawing logs with this. You are using this to trap. And in lots of different knife fighting, I know it from Kali, but I'm pretty sure this is done in many other styles of knife fighting. In reverse grip, you will be trapping your opponent's arm. I should be careful with this, with the back of the blade. And it's a momentary passing thing. You don't hold on to that for long. But when you do that and you grab someone, say someone's coming in with a blade like this, and I'm trapping and pulling and then coming off and cutting, you want it trapped while it's in that position. Those serrations help grip, but also as you disengage, it's just making a nasty slash. So I haven't spoken with Westfall for a while. He's one of the two designers, him and Mr. Lopez, about this, but I am 100% sure, 99.7% sure that that's why those serrations are there. I can't imagine another reason on this knife to have those serrations there. This reminds me a little bit of the Goblin. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to remember the Goblin. Spyderco did a version of it a little while back, and I don't remember what they called it, but it was a curvy sort of Persian-y knife with serrations on the back. Really excellent sharp jimping here to engage the thumb. My thumb on my medium-sized hands, it's perfect length. So I'm pretty sure that with the handle this size, which will accommodate larger hands, that's long enough on the thumb to engage the back of the blade. You have square jimps there, nice and sharp, and your thumb is not going to slip. I put 2 Ranger bands on this. The G10 is Peel Ply G10. It's not that grippy, which I'm grateful for because I don't like shirts and stuff hanging up on it. But here I put those Ranger bands on for a little extra grip, and we'll see how that works out. I've experimented with carry. I've had it with the shot cord just tucked in my waistband, but with that squared off sheath, it's not as comfortable if the pants are snug. And let's face it, after the Christmas season, my pants are a little snug. So I have this DCC horizontal clip on it, and this seems to be working pretty well so far. That is the Station IX number 12. Highly recommended for all of your tactical engagements. Next up, this one I got from Dave, Dave of OG Blade Reviews, and I am fostering this knife. I've always been very curious about it, and my curiosity has extended. So I consider this a foster care knife. Might be its forever home right here. This is the Tops Modern Gladius. This is a 2023 release, and it's just really cool. It's a different kind of dagger. Of course, it's got as the name belies, it's got a Gladius style dagger blade. Gladius is the Roman short sword that really won it for the Romans. I mean, that was a great. They went from a slashing knife, the falchion slashing short sword, to a thrusting short sword, and it was sort of an economical move because they were noticing they had to employ pikemen to walk around the battlefield afterward and kill all the grievously wounded people who had been horribly slashed. And they decided, why employ pikemen to do this work when we could just pay the guys who are supposed to kill the enemy soldiers in the first place with a hand pike, basically. So they changed their tactics, changed their sword, and that's the quick and dirty of how the Gladius came to be. So I was really thrilled a couple of years ago when this came out to see Tops do this in a dagger, in a handheld dagger style. I'm not crazy about the pommel, to be honest. I think it's supposed to evoke the pommel, the rounded globular pommel of the sword, of the Gladius sword. But I think it just makes for sort of an awkward giant, what do you call it? Lanyard hole. Like, it's not something you're putting your fingers in. It doesn't really aid in it's too small for fingers, too large for lanyard. I kind of just wish that they had continued the micarta down around it. Would make it a little more comfortable in reverse grip if you're going to put your thumb on the back. But hey, you know what? You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you just might find that you get what you need. And I get what I need from this modern Gladius. 1095 blade steel, so nice and tough, covered with that traditional black traction coating and with that gorgeous tan canvas micarta with red liners. A handsome knife and a very cool looking knife. So it's going to spend some time here in the collection and learn what it takes to be a part of my collection, which is very little. It takes very little to be a part of my collection. I ask very, very little of my knives. So just that they show up and that they look good and feel good in hand. All right, lastly, for one of the knives that I consider a user, my Laredo Bowie, and I've done a lot of noodling around with that, but not so much in the batoning of wood, but in the practice, the martial practice. It is my favorite of the cold steel Bowie knives. So I decided to get this Trailmaster Bowie trainer. And I'm glad I did. I tend to do a lot of my my live my training in the morning with live knives, and I've decided that that's a bad idea. I once came up with a rule, very smart rule: no drinking and playing with knives, and that came out of experience. That's a bad idea, and so I'm extending that to no pre-coffee knife training. And I wait an hour to drink coffee after I wake up. I've heard that it's just a comfort beverage before you're awake for an hour, and then after you're awake for an hour, apparently the caffeine really allows itself to work. So as part of my no pre-caffeinated live blade training, I got this, and so I've been using this. The only thing I don't like about this, yeah, it's rubber, it's a little flexible, but it's good for training, with other people. That doesn't bother me. The one thing that I don't like is it's quite light. And the Laredo Bowie is, the opposite of that. It's somewhat heavy for a knife. I mean, it's well balanced and everything, but this does not in any way approximate the weight. But, again, you got to work with what you got. And if this stops me from cutting my own leg off, it's worth it. So I highly recommend, if you like to mess around like that, get yourself a trainer, whether it's this or you make yourself one out of an old cutting board. Those plastic cutting boards work great. Do something like that. All right, so we're going to talk about 10 great fixed blade field knives. But before we do, check out this. We always have really cool merch on our website. That merch is the way kids say merchandise. You can buy mugs, you can buy all sorts of stuff. But here we got t-shirts, and Jim comes up with these awesome designs almost on a weekly basis. This one, keep calm and carry a knife responsibly. I like the responsibly part because sometimes we forget, as I do, and sometimes we cut ourselves. So keep calm and carry a knife responsibly, and many, many other t-shirts on the knifejunkie.com/shop webpage. So do go check that out. All right. What's a field knife, you say? To me, a field knife, and to me and many others, a field knife is the kind of knife that's at home in a number of different places. Whether you're hiking or whether you're at the campsite, or something that can do both of those, but also flex into a combative role. So I have 10 of those here that I want to show, and some of them do some aspect of that much better than others. But these are kind of overall field knives. And I have to stress the combat role is definitely a tertiary role for most of these knives. Really, to be a good field knife, to me, they have to excel at the hiking and camping part. But to me, like an SE, yeah, you could use it as a combat knife, but unless it's the SE4 tactical version, it's probably not the best thing for that. All right. All that said, let me show you something that's not on this list, but would be if I got a different version of that. And this is the Armiger 4 by DeMarco Knives. Now, I got the one that is very definitely the tactical version. It's all serrated, and it's the drop point with the sharpened swedge here. So if you get the non-serrated version, you still get a sharpened swedge. And to me, that means it's more of a fighting, more of a combat knife. But the Armiger Tonto and the Armiger Clip Point could definitely be great field knives. People never talk about Tontos as field or camp knives, but I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be good at it. So Armiger would make this, except my version does not make this list because of that double serration. All right, first I'm going to start off with one that's brand new to me, and this is the second release of this knife. This is the beautiful Steadfast. I'm a huge fan of this knife so far. It is wickedly sharp. It's got a great shape. It is a long, slender clip point, and this one to me really shows how it could flex into the fighting and combat role because of that long, slender clip point blade. But it is very sharp, and it's a very efficient cutter. If you look at the thumb rest area and that portion of the curved handle, and put that kind of flat and parallel to whatever you're looking at here, like say the top of this mat, you'll see how the blade itself, though kind of a straight blade, is angled downward. So that accelerates your cutting as you move through your material, kind of like as if it were a recurve. I talk about that downward angle on blades a lot. I was just mentioning it on the number 12 here. So that makes this excel at all sorts of wood shaving, wood cutting, and other kind of carving tasks. If you look at it in my hand, you'll see how it angles down away from my knuckles. So yeah, it does have an aggressive looking design, but I think this falls squarely in the field knife category because it's kind of a do-all knife. This has very tough K329 blade steel, and that's a favorite for Work Tough gear. I think Work Tough gear really specializes in knives like this, knives that, yeah, would be pretty excellent combat fight knives, and they kind of look aggressive, but really they're optimized for outdoors use. And I think this definitely falls in that category. And I just like looking at it and holding it. It's such an awesome design. Really like that. And a great, very retentive sheath here. Work Tough Gear sheaths, I mention all the time, are not my favorite. They take up a lot of real estate, a lot of extra room on the outside of the grommets. But the thing that might be a plus to you, but to me is a little too much, is, man, it's really retentive. You really have to push and push on the thumb ramp and pull to get this thing out. And I guess that's all in all, that's a good thing, because you're not going to lose your knife. Certainly not going to lose your knife. Next up is the Buck 119, a classic field knife. This is sold, marketed, and designed as a hunting knife. But I have often commented on what a great fighting knife it would be, because it has a not sharpened, but a 0 ground swedge, so makes for a great back cutting knife. Back cut, that's this motion, that downward flicking motion, where you are kind of inserting the tip of the blade, but also using the swedge, or the tip of the blade doesn't have to have a swedge, but that helps to gash. It's often a very defensive move for an incoming knife arm or knife hand, and it would be great for that. But we know that this has mostly been used throughout the ages as a hunting knife. I have heard, not have the experience, but I've heard that it's great for field dressing game, because it's got this big, thick handle. You'll notice the handle, this plasticine handle. I don't remember the material, but it comes all the way up to the full width of that guard. So it gives you a lot to hold on to, even when your hands are wet or cold or what have you. And it's got that nice belly up front. So I've heard that this is great for hunting and field dressing game, but also with that 420 Boss heat treated blade, it is just a great all arounder for making feather sticks, for camp, as a camp kitchen knife, and all the sort of tasks. This would even be very good for clearing light brush, because it's got that bird's beak pommel here. You can kind of choke back, and you can do this kind of light hacking on, say, sapling limbs or dead brush that you're collecting to make a fire with. So no doubt a handsome, beautiful, and classic field knife here that could flex into all of those roles quite capably. Next is one that I've carried an awful lot, just around here on the back .40 backyard here, in clearing brush and just doing basic outdoor chores. This one is the Tops Tex Creek, with that beautiful full grain leather sheath. I think people call these pouch style sheaths, where you just pull it and drop it back in, and it's sort of form molded, but it makes for a real easy around the camp sort of pulling out your knife, much unlike that Work Tough gear, where it takes some effort to get it out and put it back in. This takes very little effort to draw and return to the sheath. I originally got this. I was going to EDC carry it as a defensive fixed blade. It's got a great swedge and a great point. It's 1095 blade steel, and so tough as the day is long. But so it's got a great, and it has that jimping. It's got a great sort of combative profile as a fixed blade, but I found the handle to be long for my style of carry. So I just, I made a great Kydex sheath for this, but I just ended up always using this sheath, the leather sheath it shipped with, and using it outside in the backyard. Now, I chipped this knife. I was doing something stupid. I was using it as a, I mean, this part wasn't stupid. I was using it to hack and chop, but I was near a chain link fence that used to be around the periphery of our property, and I hit not the chain link, but the steel tubing, and I just knocked a nasty chip out of it. I resharpened it. It did not take that long. The 1095 blade steel comes back to true, or it comes to sharp pretty easily. It was right around here somewhere. I think I can still see it, a tiny little bit of it right there. But that's why you have that little smile at the sharpening choil there. I removed quite a bit of steel, especially off of this portion of the blade, but it still works fantastically, and just a great knife. So great for hiking and camping, definitely. And I feel like I've proven that to myself just in the kind of, how I've carried it around all day long and used it for all sorts of stuff in my backyard. Yes, I know that's not hiking. When you're hiking, you have a lot of other stuff you're carrying around, but on a 100-degree, super humid Virginia day, mowing the lawn and doing other kind of high exertion kind of chores, I feel like that it steps in as an analog to hiking. So a great knife for that. And then the sheath, awesome. I of course have a lanyard on this one because I like to have it in hand like this, especially if I'm doing that sort of chopping. You can really let go of it and kind of let it drumstick in your hand. So I like the lanyard on this one. All right, next up is another knife from Station IX. This one definitely does flexes between all of the categories. This is the S.E.R.E knife. Survival, evasion, survival, escape, resist and evade, I think is what S.E.R.E stands for. There's the S.E.R.E school that special forces guys go through to learn how to escape and resist and evade and all of that and survive. And this knife is built for all of those. This is 1095 blade steel as well, so good and tough, proven outdoors knife with that gorgeous clip point sort of Bowie profile. You get the combative aspect built in, but that swedge isn't sharp. It actually comes to quite a broad surface there. So you can use this to baton. You can, or otherwise use that back of the blade without cutting yourself. Maybe you use it as, I've seen people use this as a draw knife. Though if I were using this as a draw knife, I would slam a piece of wood in the tip and then hold on to that wood because it's not a very long blade. It's about a 5.5-inch blade there. Great, very comfortable contoured G10. You've got the 2 lanyard holes here, and I've seen where people put a lanyard like a D-ring, so you can slip your hand in there and the lanyard goes around the back of your hand, and it sticks in hand so you can use your hand for other stuff, or just makes it hard to disengage if you're fighting with it or whatever. Again, since it's a nice and sort of contoured, I'm not going to call it slick, but it's not a textured G10. I have those Ranger bands on there. I just like them for grip. Works very well. And then that handle shape is very comfortable. You could hold this all day long. The guard extends down here by the forefinger, but is nice and short by the thumb. So you can definitely come over it and put the thumb on the back of the blade. You get the same thing with the Buck 119 guard, and I really like that aspect. I think this is a beautiful knife. I could look at it all day long, but we don't have all day. Comes with a great Kydex sheath. Again, it's kind of squared off. I'm not a huge fan of that, but this attaches very well to my Bastinelli shoulder holster style sling. It fits the contours of the attachment pad perfectly. Actually, a little bit heavy for that, but a great knife for that nonetheless. This next one is pretty interesting, and you don't see people talk about this too much. It's pretty heavy for what it is, but this is the Spyderco Serrata, designed by Ackerman. Now I'm forgetting his first name, but a really nicely designed knife. A very simple. To me, it reminds me of what Native Americans would have carried, or frontiersmen would have carried. It has a very simple sort of roach belly profile. But this is cast 440C. We don't hear about cast knives too much. Of course, we're all familiar with the opening sequence of Conan the Barbarian, where Conan's father casts the sword. You wouldn't really do that. But here, I'm not sure what the benefits are of casting a sword. A blade. quite frankly, but that's what we have here. You've got a really dramatic distal taper to the blade. It starts at 5/16 of an inch at the tang and tapers to a nice point. This is a great outdoors knife for batoning and that kind of thing. You've got a wedge-shaped blade here. And I'm not sure, maybe you can, if you know, you can drop it in the comments below. Is the casting to make it tough? Because this is a very tough knife. I have batoned with this knife and have seen no, it didn't break or anything. I am kind of hesitant to do that kind of activity with a stainless steel. That's an intuitive move. It's not from experience. I've never actually broken a blade batoning it, but I always kind of feel like that's not really the realm of stainless, but it has worked great with this. This is a Taiwan production, and we know that Spyderco Taiwanese knives are incredible. The stuff that comes out of their Taiwan Taichung factory are awesome. I think the best, perhaps in fit and finish and such. You got that Coke bottle shaped palm swelled handle, very comfortable. No guard here. It certainly could be used tactically. It could be used pretty good in a slash and thrust, cut and thrust scenario, though the lack of guard makes me think that it would be better in a reverse grip. And a great field knife for that purpose. And as I mentioned, it reminds me of a roach belly or some sort of a pioneer blade or Native American blade. And we know that those knives were all intended to do all. So that's kind of how this came onto the field knife list. Much like Work Tough Gear, not a huge fan of the Spyderco Kydex sheaths. They take up a lot more space than need be, than you would need them to. A lot more extra Kydex on the outside of the grommets and big, generous pancake style sheath. But it retains well, and this one shoots off. I'm not going to shoot it off the table, but this sheath shoots off with the thumb. And but I would like to see this in a leather sheath. I think this would be better with a leather sheath. And I know this is going to be unpopular, but I'd love to have a lanyard hole on this one. Okay, that is the Serrata from from Spyderco. Not everything's a Cold Steel, Bob. Including this next one. This is also a favorite, has gotten a lot of outdoor use from me. This is the Bark River Knives Boone 2. Just a beauty. I remember when this came out, I got really crazy, like looking for it was announced, and then I was just lurking on the Bark River or on the DLT or Knives Ship Free website. Can't remember which one, waiting for it to drop because it just really, I don't know, touched off something in me. This reminds me of the kind of knife that led to the K-bar. I know that this kind of knife led to the K-bar, but this is the style of knife that outdoorsmen in early 20th century America were carrying. And I always think of a dad camping in the 1930s and having this on his belt. Something about it just really captured my imagination. So I had to have it and got it. But then once I had it, I realized, wow, this is just an awesome all-around outdoors knife. And yeah, you've got a clip point with a nice swedge and a great, pretty stout, but acute point. This could be an excellent fighting knife if you had to fight with it. But really, it's an old school style field knife, camping, hiking, and all that kind of activity, outdoors activity. This is in 3V steel. It's very tough. This has acted as a baton. It has acted as a, what do you call it? Feather sticking knife. I just was trying to get I think I got it all off. The sap from, I like to use pine or obviously fat wood to start fires. And I have a white pine in the yard that is always ejecting limbs. I'm always afraid that thing's going to topple over one day. White pine is kind of soft, but this works great for feather sticking and batoning. And that's about the length and breadth of my wood working with this knife, but you know, I would use it for other stuff if it came up. Brush clearing, I have used it for that. So you can choke back on this knobular pommel and kind of chop with it lightly. And I'm talking about the vines, the Virginia creeper, the grapevines we have around here. Pain in the ass, but this goes right through it, and it's got that awesome and super stout convex grind. And by super stout, I don't mean thick behind the edge. I just mean very durable style edge. This one also came in that Moran style handle, so it looks like a horse hoof sort of pommel. But this definitely I had to have in the antique stacked leather with the aluminum pommel. Just a beautiful knife. And Bark River knives, they're just awesome. I could go down rabbit holes with them. I have 4 Bark River knives, I believe. Used to have 5. Like an idiot, I got rid of the Bravo. What was that called? You know, just let me know what it is. I can't remember. But beautiful sheath. Love the sheath. All right, next up is from Off Grid Knives. Now, they have a lot of knives that might fall into this category, but to me, this is my favorite and my most used. Besides the camp kitchen knife, the Grizzly, this one is awesome. It's the Tracker V2, and it's got a nice, broad, stout handle. Very, very comfortable contour G10 with a pattern etched into it or milled into it. It is such a comfortable handle. And the blade, though, the blade is about 1.25 inches tall, full flat ground, Cryo D2. This blade is awesome. I was comparing this one with the Ridgeback, which comes in a Scandi grind and also a full flat grind. And I was comparing this with both of them, and this one just kept winning. And it's got a shorter blade. I kind of until I started using it, I thought it's kind of awkward looking, and it's not my favorite. Like, I liked the look of the Kephart better, the Ridgeback Kephart that they make, but this just beat them to me. This is such a good knife. If you're a camper, outdoorsman type, I don't know, it might even be really good for hunting. You guys tell me, with that deep belly. Now, that's the one part where I see this as a field knife, probably not so great as a combative knife because of the tip. It's pretty broad and bellied, but it would be pretty nasty as a slasher. And slashing and deep cutting it's not the whole story when it comes to fighting with a knife, but you could you could use it for that. Plus, it's got a great pommel for capping with the thumb, so you could put some force behind it and drive that point into many things, I'm sure. But this one just stands out so much as an outdoors knife, as a wood knife, and a carving knife, and it would make a great camp kitchen knife because of that, the grind, the full flat grind, and the width of the blade, that this had to be on the list. Great jimping here, and also really good sheath. I love the sheath. It's got the great thumb push off, and as with all off-grid knife sheaths, it pops right off. Off-grid knife company has changed most of their fixed blade knives to go from these real broad pancake sheaths with the grommets on both sides to the fold over taco sheaths. They both have their benefits and their drawbacks. Of course, with this style sheath, you have more lashing options. But this style sheath, it's much more subtle and slim and slender. Next up, this one definitely leans towards the combat. This one is always, always, always in my EDC backpack. This is the SOG Seal Pup. You have that beautiful classic style Mac V SOG Bowie shape. This one with serrations. This came in a number of different iterations, with and without serrations. And then they had the Elite, Seal Pup Elite, that had the jimping kind of all the way up the blade in a different blade steel. This is AUS 8, but nothing to sneeze at. This has been a great knife. I've had it for years at this point. Did not come with this Kydex sheath. I bought that aftermarket. It comes with a great nylon sheath with a utility pouch. It's a very good, very solid nylon sheath, kind of do-all sheath. But I always like this for its smaller profile, and I have it in my EDC bag in case I'm ever without a fixed blade and need one. I can easily tuck this in the waistband, and the other one rides nicely, but it's much bigger and not as subtle. This I can stash on my person and have on me without anyone knowing. Really nice knife. I love this one. And, it's not just called a SOG. It's not just called a SEAL pup. The SEAL team members, I know lots of them, not that I know them personally, but I have heard that lots of them have carried this knife. And if it's good enough for them, it's most definitely good enough for me in all regards. And it's a looker too. Again, I got those Ranger bands on there just to add the grip. Not sure if this notch here for cutting cord works so well. Hasn't worked for me so well, but maybe someone else has a better technique. All right, penultimate in this list is the Mora knife, or simply Mora Companion. The Mora Companion, we all know it excels at woodworking tasks. It's a great, great field knife, but you're like, Bob, I thought this was supposed to be combat too. Well, I have it on very good word from Ed Calderon that these knives work great as fighting knives. As much as the guys over at Mora want to deny that, this thing is a great fighting knife. You've got an outstanding grip and a grippy grip, a comfortable grip, rubberized here. And then you have this relatively long at 4 1/4 inches and slender clip point blade. So great for thrusting and your stabbing motions. But it is a Scandi ground blade, so also very, very excellent at all your woodworking chores like carving and feather sticking and notching and light batoning. It's a nice sort of wedge for making kindling and all that. And it's just an inexpensive and easy to own and carry knife. These can be had for under $20, I think, or around $20. A great injection molded sheath that clips onto your belt and stays on your belt, but you don't need to take your belt off. It just kind of slips right over. And you can drop it in, pull it out, drop it in, pull it out all day long without having to muss and fuss. Here you've got a little thumb ramp that does aid. I think they've made them pretty retentive, but that thumb ramp helps greatly. And by the way, like this as a Paccal style knife, it's awesome. In my experience, driving it into trees, of course. All right, last up is a cold steel. I know I've been Freudian slipping cold steel all day. Well, here it is finally. This is the SRK, and just an awesome field knife. You've got 6 inches of, in this case, SK5. Oh wait, yeah, carbon 5 steel, carbon V. So a carbon blade. What I'm looking for is tough carbon steel blade. You've got a 0 ground clip on that swedge there, so could definitely be great for thrusting and for back cut if you're sophisticated and fighting someone who's with a knife and all of that. So it could work great for all of that. But these are really proven. This is another one famously carried by the SEALs and issued to the SEALs during training. This is a tried and true and proven field knife for years and years and years. And it has a nice finger guard for the thrust, but also has a great place to put the thumb, and an excellent, comfortable craton handle. It's relatively neutral, so you can hold this in many, many different grips and work with it all day long. Another great thing about this knife is that if you want it, you can get it in a number of different blade steels, and they also have a compact version of it, a smaller version. So an all-around excellent knife. I always thought, it's not going to win any beauty contests, but the longer I have it, the more I love it. And just incidentally, I got this knife in 2006 and put it in a bug-out bag that I made for my wife to take when she lived in London for a year before we were married. So this has been to London and lived there and came back and has lived a life of leisure, really. So there you have it. This is my list of 10 great field knives. I do have others, and there are plenty others out there. Think of S.E.R.E, great field knives there, and many more. But these are the ones I'm showing today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and join us on Thursday night for Thursday Night Knives. And we do have that awesome Gentleman Junkie giveaway coming. So do be sure to join us for that. All right, for Jim working his magic behind the switcher, I'm Bob DeMarco saying until next time, don't take dull for an answer.
Thanks for listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review at reviewthepodcast.com. For show notes for today's episode, additional resources, and to listen to past episodes, visit our website, TheKnifeJunkie.com. You can also watch our latest videos on YouTube at TheKnifeJunkie.com/YouTube. Check out some great knife photos on TheKnifeJunkie.com/Instagram, and join our Facebook group at TheKnifeJunkie.com/Facebook. And if you have a question or comment, email them to bob@TheKnifeJunkie.com or call our 24/7 listener line at 724-466-4487, and you may hear your comment or question answered on an upcoming episode of the Knife Junkie podcast.